Imagine a single highway so crucial that if it were to close, the entire world would feel the immediate impact. This isn't just any route, it's a lifeline for billions of people, connecting continents and economies in ways most of us rarely consider. That is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage of water with outsized importance on the global stage. This slender channel connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, acting as the main artery for global energy supplies. Every day, it sees a constant flow of ships, each one carrying the fuel that powers cities, industries, and homes around the world. Every day, massive oil tankers carry about 1/5 of the world's daily oil through these waters. That's nearly 20 million barrels, enough to keep the world's engines running, from cars and planes to factories and power plants. Any disruption here, whether political, military, or even accidental, can send shockwaves through global markets, causing oil prices to skyrocket and everyday costs to soar. The ripple effects are felt in every corner of the globe, from Wall Street to your local gas station. Iran, which borders the strait, holds a powerful position and can influence or halt shipping at will. This makes the Strait of Hormuz a constant flashpoint for international tension, as global powers keep a close watch on every move in the region. The U.S. and its allies have long patrolled these waters, determined to ensure the oil keeps flowing and to deter any threats to this vital passage. But today, April 8, 2026, that delicate balance has been shattered, sending shockwaves through governments and markets alike. After a brutal war and devastating military actions, Iran has announced the strait's closure, a move that could trigger a global economic crisis, threatening energy security and stability worldwide. This is not just a regional dispute, it's a global emergency, rooted in years of conflict, rivalry, and the world's dependence on this narrow waterway. Understanding the Strait of Hormuz is key to understanding the world's current crisis and why what happens here will shape the future for us all. The crisis erupted suddenly when Iranian state media declared the Strait of Hormuz closed, in direct retaliation for Israeli airstrikes on Hezbollah positions in Lebanon. The announcement sent shockwaves through the region and across the globe, as the world realized the potential consequences of such a move in one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. Iran's military quickly followed up with a stern warning. Only ships with explicit Iranian authorization would be allowed to pass through the strait. Any unauthorized vessel would be considered a target. The message was clear and left little room for negotiation. This bold move upends decades of established international law, transforming a vital shipping lane into a potential war zone overnight. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes, now stands at the center of a dangerous standoff. Meanwhile, the White House has publicly denied any closure, insisting that maritime traffic continues to flow and that both U.S. and Iranian navies are closely monitoring the situation. Officials urge calm, but their reassurances do little to ease the growing anxiety. The result is global confusion and panic. Ship captains, insurance brokers, and traders are left scrambling, unsure of the true status of the strait. Oil prices spike as uncertainty ripples through financial markets. Is the strait open or closed? The answer seems to depend entirely on who you ask, with each side presenting its own version of reality. The lack of clarity only deepens the crisis. For tanker crews navigating these waters, and for the global economy that relies on their cargo, this uncertainty is a multi-trillion-dollar question. Every hour of doubt threatens supply chains and economic stability worldwide. The conflicting statements from both sides highlight not only deep mistrust, but also a fierce propaganda war that now runs parallel to the military tensions. Each government seeks to control the narrative, further muddying the waters. In reality, the strait may not be physically sealed off, but passage is now fraught with risk and subject to unpredictable conditions, effectively a closure in all but name. Every ship that enters does so at its own peril. The world is left guessing as the stakes grow higher by the hour, and the threat of escalation looms ever larger. Iran's move didn't happen in isolation. It was part of a rapidly escalating chain of events in the Middle East, where every action seems to trigger an even bigger reaction. Just hours before Iran's response, Israel launched massive airstrikes on Lebanon. targeting areas believed to be strongholds of Hezbollah and sending shockwaves throughout the region. On April 8th, Israeli jets struck more than 100 Hezbollah targets across Lebanon in a coordinated assault that lasted just 10 minutes, unleashing a wave of destruction and chaos. The attacks killed hundreds, wounded countless others, and forced over 1 million people from their homes, plunging Lebanon deeper into a humanitarian catastrophe that has overwhelmed aid organizations. Israel's stated goal is to dismantle Hezbollah, which it considers an existential threat on its northern border. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has vowed fierce retaliation, promising that the conflict is far from over. This relentless cycle of attack and reprisal is pushing the region closer to the brink, raising fears that the violence could spiral into a much wider regional war involving multiple countries. For Iran, Hezbollah is more than just an ally. It's a strategic partner. Tehran sees any attack on Hezbollah as a direct attack on its own interests and security. By threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, Iran is sending a clear message. If the conflict escalates, it could disrupt global shipping and energy supplies, with consequences far beyond Lebanon's borders. The fate of Lebanon is now intertwined with the world's oil supply, making this crisis not just a regional issue, but a global one that could impact economies everywhere. As tensions mount, the entire globe finds itself a stakeholder in this escalating conflict, anxiously watching to see what happens next in this volatile region. Adding to the volatility is a fragile new ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, brokered by Pakistan and China just a day before the crisis. The truce was meant to de-escalate after a devastating war, with a key condition: Iran must reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The ceasefire briefly calmed markets, but its terms excluded the ongoing Israel-Hezbollah war. This loophole left Israel free to strike Hezbollah, while Iran's ally remained under attack. Iran's leaders insist the truce was meant to halt all hostilities, warning they'll withdraw if Israeli attacks continue. The massive Israeli strikes are a direct test of the ceasefire's limits. Iran's threat to close the strait is a clear signal. It won't stand by while its ally is attacked. The ceasefire is already on the brink of collapse. The threat to Hormuz isn't just geopolitics, it hits your wallet. When Iran first closed the strait, oil prices soared, hurting economies worldwide. The brief ceasefire brought relief, but the new threat is sending prices up again. The strait is the main pipeline for global oil. Closing it spikes costs everywhere, from gas stations to grocery stores. Higher oil prices mean higher transportation costs, which ripple through the supply chain and drive up the price of everything. Inflation rises, eroding incomes and forcing families to make tough choices. Market uncertainty adds to the pain, with financial markets swinging wildly. Businesses delay investments, and consumer confidence drops, risking recession. The drama in Hormuz acts as a brake on the global economy. Every person with a job or savings feels the impact. The crisis isn't just about oil. Global food security is at risk too. The strait is a key route for grain, fertilizer, and essential goods. Disruption here means food shortages and price spikes, especially in import-dependent regions. Humanitarian agencies warn of rising hunger as supply chains break and costs soar. Insurance for ships has become prohibitively expensive, stranding hundreds of vessels. Rerouting around Africa is costly and slow, adding weeks to deliveries and driving up prices further. Manufacturers, retailers, and farmers all face delays and shortages. A single bottleneck in Hormuz can cause global gridlock, halting factories and emptying store shelves. The world's interconnected economy is suddenly at risk from one narrow strait. Behind the headlines are millions of lives upended by this crisis. In Lebanon, Israeli airstrikes have killed and wounded thousands, displacing over 1 million people. Civilians in Lebanon, Iran, and neighboring Gulf states live in fear, facing trauma and uncertainty. Military personnel and commercial crews in the strait are in constant danger, one misstep from disaster. The psychological toll is immense, with families torn apart and communities shattered. The poorest and most vulnerable suffer most, both in the region and worldwide. Every decision in Tehran, Jerusalem, or Washington has ripple effects for ordinary people everywhere. Understanding the human cost transforms this from a distant conflict into a shared global responsibility. The crisis is a stark reminder of our interconnected fate. Diplomacy is the only way out, but both sides are entrenched. The U.S. demands the immediate reopening of HORMOZ and the dismantling of Iran's nuclear program. Iran insists on controlling HORMOZ security, lifting sanctions, and ending attacks on its allies. These demands are fundamentally at odds, making compromise difficult. Adding complexity, both sides are floating controversial ideas, like charging tolls for passage through the strait. Turning a free waterway into a toll road would set a dangerous precedent for global trade. Upcoming talks in Islamabad, brokered by Pakistan and China, are the last hope for de-escalation. High-level delegations from both sides will attend, but the ceasefire is already crumbling. The outcome will shape the security of the entire Middle East and the world. The Strait of Hormuz crisis is a wake-up call for the world. A regional conflict now threatens global energy, markets, and food supplies. Our dependence on a few choke points like Hormuz exposes the fragility of the global system. Military deterrence alone is no longer enough. Diplomacy and cooperation are essential. Understanding these events helps us become responsible global citizens. The crisis is about more than oil tankers. It's about our shared vulnerability. The path forward demands compromise, awareness, and urgent action. In an interconnected world, a fire in one corner threatens us all.